Central to mainstream Western theology is the concept of a sovereign, perfectly good creator who fashioned the cosmos out of divine love. Gnosticism begins with a fundamental rejection of this premise. In the Gnostic view, the material world is not a divine gift, but a cosmic anomaly, a structural imperfection engineered by a lesser, ignorant deity. Flourishing across the Mediterranean world during the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Common Era, Gnosticism was not a monolithic institution, but a diverse network of esoteric movements. Where Orthodox Christian thinkers demanded pistis, faith in established dogma and institutional authority, Gnostics sought gnosis, an unmediated, experiential awakening to the divine spark trapped within human consciousness. This video offers a rigorous academic overview of Gnostic philosophy. We will examine their dualistic cosmology, the tragic fall of wisdom, the rediscovery of their long-lost texts in 1945, and the enduring influence of Gnostic thought on modern existentialism. Welcome to Orbit. Let us begin. To understand Gnosticism, one must first analyze the fundamental distinction between two Greek concepts, pistis and gnosis. In Proto-Orthodox Christian theology, pistis signifies faith, trust, and acceptance of established creedal statements and ecclesiastical authority. Salvation in this framework is mediated through belief in historical events and institutional rituals. Gnosis, conversely, translates not merely to intellectual knowledge, episteme, but to direct, experiential, and intuitive self-realization. For the Gnostic, salvation is not earned through blind belief or moral compliance. It is achieved through an internal awakening to one's true divine nature. It is crucial from an academic standpoint to note that Gnosticism is an umbrella term, largely popularized by modern scholars and early anti-heretical writers like Irenaeus of Lyons. In reality, the ancient Gnostic landscape was deeply pluralistic. It consisted of various distinct theological schools. The Valentinians, who attempted to reconcile Gnostic cosmology with mainstream Pauline Christianity in 2nd century Rome. The Sethians, who traced their spiritual lineage back to Seth, the 3rd son of Adam, emphasizing a complex, dualistic mythos. And thinkers like Basilides of Alexandria, who formulated highly abstract metaphysical systems. Despite their differences, these diverse sects were bound by a shared core conviction. The human spirit is an exiled spark of divine light, trapped within a dark material matrix. At the apex of Gnostic metaphysics lies a concept of God radically distinct from classical Judeo-Christian theology. This supreme entity is often referred to as the Mima, the ineffable source, or the One. The monad is not a personified deity, nor does it possess human emotions such as wrath or jealousy. It is entirely transcendent, infinite, unnameable, and beyond human comprehension, existing as pure, uncreated spiritual light. Because the monad is absolute perfection, it cannot directly interact with corruptible matter. Instead, through a process of divine emanation, similar to light radiating from an eternal star, the monad projects paired spiritual aspects known as Aeons. These Aeons exist in complementary male and female dyads, together forming the pleroma, or the fullness, the realm of total divine harmony, wisdom, and eternal truth. Within the Sethian and Valentinian traditions, these Aeons represent abstract metaphysical principles: mind, nous, truth, aletheia, word, logos, and life, Zoe. In this original state of existence, there was no matter, no decay, no suffering, and no darkness. The spiritual realm was complete within itself. The structural equilibrium of the pleroma was shattered not by an external evil, but by an internal desire for knowledge. This pivotal event in Gnostic theology centers on the lowest aeon of the pleroma, Sophia, the personification of wisdom. Driven by a profound desire to comprehend the ultimate nature of the unapproachable monad, Sophia attempted to bring forth an emanation without the consent of her divine counterpart, and without the authorization of the source. In philosophical terms, Her act was one of premature hubris, an attempt to grasp the infinite through finite means. The consequence of this unauthorized act was catastrophic. Because her creative impulse lacked divine balance, the resulting creation was not a luminous aeon, but a deformed, spiritless anomaly, an abortive entity born out of passion, ignorance, and isolation. Realizing her error and filled with shame, Sophia cast this misshapen entity out of the pleroma, concealing it within a veil of dense darkness. This tragic rupture within the divine realm is known as the cosmic fracture. It marks the precise moment where theology transitions into mythology, setting the stage for the creation of the physical universe. The light of Sophia had been compromised, and a portion of that divine energy was now trapped outside the fullness of God. From a critical standpoint, Sophia's fall serves a vital philosophical function within Gnostic thought. It provides an answer to the problem of evil without compromising the absolute perfection of the true God. In standard Western monotheism, the existence of evil and suffering creates an acute theological dilemma. If God is all-powerful and all-good, why does suffering exist? The Gnostic solution is radically simple, yet profound. The material world was not created directly by the Supreme God. It is the accidental byproduct of a divine mistake. Human beings, therefore, find themselves in a state of existential exile. We reside in a cosmos that was not built for our spiritual well-being, carrying within ourselves a fragment of Sophia's lost divine spark, trapped inside an alien environment. Cast out from the pleroma into the lower realms of chaos, Sophia's illegitimate offspring coalesced into a distinct entity. In Gnostic texts, most notably the Apocryphon of John, this creature is given several names: Yaldabaoth, Saklas, meaning the fool, and Aramael. In philosophical terms, he is known as the Demiurge, borrowing a concept from Plato's Timaeus, but radically reinterpreting it. Unlike Plato's benevolent craftsman, the Gnostic Demiurge is blind, ignorant, and arrogant. Look upon his traditional iconographic depiction, a lion-faced serpent enveloped in dark flames. This grotesque form signifies his dual nature, the fierce, tyrannical power of the lion combined with the earthly, deceptive cunning of the serpent. Completely unaware of the spiritual pleroma above him, Yaldabaoth perceived only the surrounding darkness. In his isolation and profound ignorance, he proclaimed the famous blasphemy recorded in Gnostic literature: "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." From a Gnostic perspective, this declaration, which closely mirrors the monotheistic declarations of the Old Testament, is not a statement of ultimate truth, but the ultimate expression of cosmic delusion. Believing himself to be the sole architect of reality, Yaldabaoth proceeded to organize the material realm. To assist him in governing this physical domain, he brought forth dark spiritual entities known as the Archons, a Greek term translating to rulers or authorities. In Sethian and Valentinian cosmologies, these 7 main Archons correspond to the 7 classical planetary spheres: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. They are not merely physical planets, but spiritual gatekeepers designed to enforce fate, Heimarmene, physical laws, time, and mortality. Together, the Demiurge and his Archons crafted the material universe, not as an act of divine love, but as a sophisticated apparatus of containment. Matter was dense, corruptible, and bound by strict physical laws. Its primary purpose was to keep the divine spark trapped, asleep, and utterly ignorant of its true origin. However, an unexpected element disrupted the Demiurge's design. When Yaldabaoth breathed life into the first physical human form, Adam, he unknowingly returned the divine energy he had inherited from his mother, Sophia. The created human instantly shone with a higher intelligence than its creator. Realizing their creation surpassed them, the Archons imprisoned this divine spark, pneuma, within a heavy physical body, soma, inducing a profound spiritual amnesia. The theological implications of this mythos are profound. In the Gnostic framework, human suffering, death, and existential angst are not the result of human sin or a fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. Rather, they are structural features of a flawed reality built by an imperfect ruler. The primary tool of the Archons is agnosia, forgetfulness. Through material desires, physical pain, fear, and dogmatic religious structures, the Archons keep humanity distracted and bound to the earthly realm. Thus, standard morality and institutional worship are viewed with deep suspicion by Gnostic writers. Worshipping the creator of this world is, in essence, worshipping the warden of one's own prison. True liberation requires looking beyond the architect of the cosmos to the unnameable source that lies beyond the cosmic vault. For nearly 2 millennia, our understanding of Gnosticism was fundamentally distorted by a major historiographical limitation. Almost everything scholars knew about these groups came directly from the writings of their fiercest ideological opponents. Following the consolidation of Orthodox Christianity in the 4th century under Emperor Constantine and the Council of Nicaea, non-canonical texts were systematically suppressed, burned, and declared heretical. For centuries, the primary sources on Gnosticism were the polemics written by early heresiologists, heresy hunters such as Irenaeus of Lyons, Tertullian, and Epiphanius of Salamis. Naturally, these Orthodox critics presented Gnosticism in the worst possible light, framing its adherents as dangerous, immoral blasphemers who fractured the unity of the Church. Gnostic voices were effectively silenced, reduced to footnotes in the grand narrative of Orthodox Christian history. That dynamic changed permanently in December 1945. In the desert cliffs near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi, a local peasant named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was digging for sabak, a nitrogen-rich soil used as fertilizer. Beneath a large boulder, his mattock struck a heavy, sealed red earthenware jar nearly a meter high. Fearing the jar might contain a jinn or bad spirit, yet hoping it held gold, he broke it open. Inside lay no gold, but something infinitely more valuable to human history: 13 leather-bound papyrus codices, containing 52 predominantly Gnostic treatises, translated from original Greek into Coptic around the 4th century CE. Scholars believe these priceless manuscripts were buried around 367 CE by monks from the nearby Pachomian monastery. This occurred shortly after Athanasius, the bishop of Alexandria, issued his famous festal letter ordering the destruction of all non-canonical, apocryphal books. Instead of burning them, synonymous guardians of these texts sealed them in a jar and buried them in the desert sands, where they remained untouched for over 1,600 years. The Nag Hammadi discovery revolutionized the field of religious history, biblical scholarship, and early Christian studies. For the first time in modern history, Gnostics were allowed to speak for themselves. Among the most significant texts uncovered was the Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Thomas contains no narrative structure, no birth story, no miracles, no crucifixion, and no resurrection. Instead, it consists entirely of 114 secret sayings, logia, attributed to Jesus. In the Gospel of Thomas, salvation is not achieved through Christ's sacrificial death on the cross, but through the correct interpretation of his mystical teachings. Saying 3 exemplifies this internal gnosis. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. Other crucial texts, such as the Gospel of Philip, offered radical sacramental theology, while the Apocryphon of John provided the definitive, systematic layout of Sethian Gnostic mythology. The discovery proved beyond doubt that early Christianity was far more diverse, complex, and philosophically fragmented than traditional church histories had suggested. To fully grasp the revolutionary nature of Gnostic thought, one must examine its soteriology, its doctrine of salvation. In Orthodox Western Christian theology, salvation is a moral and juridical process. Human beings are born into a state of original sin, requiring redemption through faith, moral compliance, and the vicarious atonement of Jesus Christ on the cross. Gnosticism operates on an entirely different diagnosis of the human condition. The fundamental problem of humanity is not sin, but ignorance, agnosia. We are not inherently evil. We are asleep, drugged, and spiritually amnesiac, trapped inside a material matrix designed to obscure our true identity. Salvation, therefore, is not a pardon granted by an external deity, but an act of self-realization, an internal awakening known in Platonism as anamnesis, or recollection. The divine spark within remembers its origins in the pleroma. Christ, in most Gnostic frameworks, is not a sacrificial victim dying for human sins, but an emissary of light sent from the true God to bring the secret knowledge required to break the Archontic spell. Although Gnosticism was suppressed in late antiquity, its core philosophical architecture never truly disappeared. It re-emerged forcefully in 20th century philosophy and psychology. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung was profoundly influenced by Gnostic texts, seeing in their complex mythologies a proto-psychological map of the human psyche. For Jung, the Demiurge was not a literal cosmic entity, but an archetype of the fragmented, arrogant ego that cuts itself off from the deeper, transcendent self, the monad. Jung viewed the Gnostic journey of liberation as an ancient precursor to his own psychological concept of individuation, the integration of the conscious and unconscious mind. Similarly, scholars like Jonas pointed out striking parallels between Gnosticism and 20th century existentialism. Martin Heidegger's concept of Geworfenheit, or thrownness, the feeling of being arbitrarily cast into an indifferent world, mirrors the Gnostic experience of cosmic exile. In both frameworks, the individual finds themselves in an alien environment, forced to seek authentic awareness against the deadening weight of social and material conformity. In contemporary culture, Gnostic themes have become the foundational narrative framework for modern science fiction. Author Philip K. Dick, whose works inspired films like Blade Runner and Total Recall, was explicitly obsessed with Gnostic cosmology. He famously proposed that reality as we experience it is an artificial projection maintained by an oppressive divine illusion. The most iconic modern expression of Gnosticism, however, is the Wachowskis' 1999 masterpiece, The Matrix. The film is a beat-for-beat retelling of the Gnostic myth. Neo represents the divine spark trapped in an illusionary artificial reality. Morpheus acts as the Gnostic revealer who offers the pill of Gnosis. The machines and agents function as the Archons, and the architect is a textbook depiction of the blind, cold Demiurge. Even today, as scientists and philosophers seriously debate simulation theory, the hypothesis that our universe is a digital construct engineered by a higher intelligence, we are simply expressing ancient Gnostic anxieties through the lexicon of modern computer science. Gnosticism stands as one of the most daring and uncompromising intellectual movements in human history. By daring to question the absolute goodness of the material world and the structures of religious authority, the Gnostics forced philosophy and theology to confront the problem of suffering at its deepest root. Whether viewed as an ancient heresy, a profound mystical philosophy, or an early form of depth psychology, Gnosticism continues to challenge us with a timeless epistemological question. Is the reality we inhabit a true home to be accepted, or an illusion from which we must awaken? Thank you for watching this comprehensive investigation. If you found this academic deep dive valuable, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep seeking the truth beyond the surface.